Okay, you're a little too close because of the camera.
Slide back. Let's go.
Okay, I'd like everybody to meet Madeleine France. Aside from being a renowned expert on Lalique and the Lalique family, she was the first president, the founding president of the International Perfume Bottle Association, and we adore her. She's our treasure and an encyclopedia.
An old encyclopedia.
How long has her perfume?
25 years. We just had our 25th anniversary. So normally I do everything off the cuff, but since I've gotten older, I don't remember all the dates. So what I'd like to do, we're actually going to dish the Lalique family because they are the most unusual, unconventional people probably through 3 centuries of owners, from all the way from Renee Lalique to Suzanne Lalique to Marc Lalique to Marie Claude Lalique, who, by the way, died in Captiva here in Florida 10 years ago. René Lalique was renowned for his jewelry. At the age of 16, he became apprenticed to a jeweler named Louis Arcouk. And in 1986, he already opened up his own workshop. And he was combining different materials, like bone to make combs for the hair. And he started experimenting with glass because he could not get the precious jewels that he wanted. And this is what started him. In about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, there was an exhibition in Paris of the Gulbenkian collection of jewelry. This is the most widely known collection of jewelry in the entire world. I'm not going to tell you how they almost arrested me, but I got saved at the last minute. I went there studying the book, studying the catalog, and looking at the pieces because I'm a jewelry designer by trade. And I couldn't figure out how he could heat the metal and not crack the glass, plain and simple. So anyway, this scarf was made specifically for the Gulbenkian collection. It was the first scarf made in a series of scarves designed by Marie Claude Lalique. And it was made for a certain market. Now, who in here can tell me which country is the largest collector of Lalique glass in the world for the last 100 years?
Japan.
You don't count.
Japan.
You don't count.
But you never told me that.
Anyway, it is
That's what
Japan.
I would have said. I've heard that.
Okay.
Right there, right there.
The reason is because the Japanese have very, very small houses, and believe it or not, rich or not, the apartments are very small, so the glass fits in perfectly as opposed to huge pictures. Now, when the tsunami hit in Tokyo, near Tokyo, when that town got destroyed, the largest collector of Lalique glass lost his entire collection. It all went out to sea.
Oh, my God.
Probably he had the most pieces of Cire Perdue that anybody has ever seen in the world, at a tune of maybe $500,000 per piece. And he lost 150 pieces. Unfortunately, we also lost him. Now, there's a certain dealer in Lalique in New York that I swear has got an apartment right in California somewhere, hoping these pieces would come rolling ashore. And these were pieces that he sold to him, so he keeps looking to see, boy, maybe I can get that back and I can get $1 million for it now, because it came through the tsunami. But that's one of the cute stories. Anyway, let's get back to the dysfunctional family. Okay, let me give you a few dates and a little bit of information. He married a gal named Marie-Louise Lambert when in 1986, after he opened up his own workshop. 1886. Georgette was born, that was their first child, but she died when she was 12 years old. They separated in 1893. But what his wife didn't know, at that time he was already with Augustine Ledru, who 5 years later, this is a picture of Augustine Ledru. It's a Cire Perdue piece made by Lalique of her face. And what nobody knew that this was going on, and he was having children with her while he was still married. So let's get the dates straight. In 1893, separated. He met Augustine Ledru in 1890. Suzanne, Lalique's sister, married into the Haviland family, and then Mark was born in 1900. And he finally married Ledru in 1902 after they had a couple of children together. Now, it's a very interesting story. Mark was very jealous of his father because the designs that Mark did were legitimately his designs, which he never got credit for. In 1925, René Lalique had a form of arthritis that totally crippled him. Now you tell me how a man whose hands are all crippled up at the age of, well, he was probably 40-some years old, how he could design 2 churches, 3 big, huge boats, including the Normandy, doors, windows, the windows for the Cody building, which is now Henry Bendel's on Fifth Avenue in New York. He can't be in all these places at the same time. When the catalog raisonné came out, I had a big discussion with the man who was writing it. And I said, there are certain things he does over and over again. He used the same leaves, he uses the same flowers, he used the same type of women. But there are certain things that somebody else is doing. Les Violettes is one of them. The little tiny violets, he never did a violet in anything. If he did a flower, he would do it in an ashtray, he would do it in a perfume bottle, he would do it on a vase, he would do it on a box. So we believe that Suzanne Lalique, who married into the Haviland family and became a decorator for them on their plates and on their dinnerware that they were selling, we believe that for 5 years, between 1920 and 1925, she was a designer for the Lalique Company. And it's very exciting because when the Lalique Company got sold, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I don't want to forget this, Haviland and Lalique did a joint venture together, which lasted all of 3 years, and now it's broken apart, no longer exists, okay? He did St. Matthew's Church in Jersey, and he did the doors for St. Matthew's Church. And Julia was kind enough to bring this book, and these are the doors. These were the doors for St. Matthew's, and they sold last year at Sotheby's and at the French Sotheby's for €1,750,000, which is over $2 million. I think that's cheap. I swear, because one of the panels from the Cody building, just a little square panel, 18 by 18, sold for $250,000. 4 of them sold for $1 million. So to me, they got away very inexpensively. The doors are now at the Tokyo Museum. The Tokyo Museum has a huge collection of Lalique. Okay.
They were taken out of the church because the church was...
I believe the church was demolished. I really don't know. I haven't found that out. He also did the Orient Express. We also think that his sister was involved in the design of the pieces of glass in the Orient Express. Another thing interesting, which I'm getting ahead of myself again, which I have a tendency to do, René Lalique died 2 days before the end of World War II. The only thing he wanted to know, because one of the things that the Germans did, they did it in Czechoslovakia, they did it in Hungary, they went to all the factories and collected all the steel that they could. The thing Lalique was most worried about was that they were going to take his molds, which were all made out of steel. The day before he died, he found out that his factory, which is located in Alsace-Lorraine and is still in Alsace-Lorraine, his factory still had all of their molds. So he was very grateful for that. Okay, let's get to some of the dishy parts here. His son Mark, as I said, never got credit for doing any of the work that he did. A lot of the bottles were designed by Mark that had Renee's name on it. Now, this scarf, the orange you see here is from a bottle called Corail Rouge, and it's a very rare bottle. You don't, I think I may have seen 3 of them. Here's the bottle on the bottom, this one. And there are several bottles on here that were designed by Mark Lalique, and as I said, he never got credit for it. This is one of my favorites. I hit it. This is for, is that gorgeous? It's signed our Lalique, but it was actually designed by Mark Lalique. What's the name of this company? Begins with an M. Molinard. And this came out of the collection of Marie-Claude Lalique. Here's the original thing on the bottom. I bought this. I bought, I think, 30 bottles from her auction that was taking place in Paris. And I bought it for clients, and I bought some for myself. But I really don't collect Renee Lalique perfume bottles. So I just brought this one to show you. It's the last one of them, and it's probably one of the most expensive. She also did not know much about the perfume bottles. And above the store in the building that they own in Paris, they have a museum. So I was taken up to take a look at the bottles. And I'm going around and I'm changing stoppers here, putting, you know, they were all in the wrong bottles. She didn't know anything about the bottles. But nevertheless, here's the bottle, by the way, that I just showed you right up here. Molinard. And again, this is something that was designed for the Japanese market. And this is not all. Here are some of the jewelry and some of the perfumes. Lalique was very, very, the Lalique company was going downhill a little bit. So Marie-Claude decided she was going to do something special. She was smart enough to hire the best people, and she decided she was going to do not only a line of perfume, but jewelry. The old Lalique jewelry, you can't even touch it because it's so way overpriced. One of the pieces she did was this. Now, if you know anything about Lalique, it's a famous design from a famous vase that was designed by her grandfather. It's one of my least favorite vases, and I had it open here on the right page, so I'll have to look for it. But she took some designs from the here. This is the vase that she based this design on. She based this design on, with the snake, on another piece that was done by her grandfather, was a snake vase. So she turned it into a bracelet with Lalique sign behind it. All of this pendant is something she designed too. Then they decided to do perfume. Now, some of the most famous and very good perfume people, what they call noses, are in Japan. So she decided to go to Japan, and she was going to diversify. This is the first bottle that she ever designed with a little pendant. I'm not taking it out of here because it's more valuable if it's sealed and filled. And the perfume doesn't stick with you at all, but it's a very nice scent. And she did a series of, every year she did a different bottle. There are little ones here for you to look at too. She was very smart, this lady. She designed purses as well for the Japanese market. This is the Ondine collection, and so is this one. Okay, let's get back to, I'll go back to Mark for a minute. Okay. Mark was also like his father. Mark had 2 wives, 4 girlfriends, last count, 5 illegitimate children. Now, when Mark died in 1977, the latest girlfriend got the Lalique company. It was not passed down to Marie-Claude. And I know that for sure because she told me herself that that's what happened. She had to buy it back from his illegitimate children. 5 years after she bought it back, they had the right. I just happened to be in Paris at that time, and there was an article in the Herald that said that these 5 illegitimate children got to take the name Lalique and use it legitimately. So that, she really didn't like that very much. Marie Claude was a very private person, the same way Mark was. Mark did not discuss anything. If you look at a bio on the Lalique family, there's very, very little known about Mark. And he was just as private as his daughter is. Marie Claude was a set designer. And when the company came back into her name, because there was no Lalique figurehead, a man by the name of Tavernas was handling it at the time, and they needed her. He was the one who talked her into coming back into the business. And if you compare the things she designed, she was very much into very earthy things. The little owl there is something that she designed. The 2 little bells are the birds. Her most famous piece and my favorite is the big sitting lion. I had too many things to bring her. I would have brought it. You could have seen her signature on it. She was also, as I said, very private. The first time I ever met her was at Neiman Marcus, when she signed my lion for me. And I had a T-shirt on that a friend of mine painted with Lalique perfume bottles on it. And she liked it very much. So I said, okay, I said, I'll have him do some shirts for you. I said, I'm sure that the background is going to be gray because that was her standard color. And she started to laugh. She said, you know me very well. Well, the store in Paris is all gray. Now, all this conversation is going on in French because she doesn't speak any English. So we had a very nice time. She was coming to Mayors, and I did send her the T-shirts. I had several T-shirts made for her with her grandfather's perfume bottles on it. And she sent me a beautiful piece of glass that was signed, so I was very happy. I was also very friendly at the time with her PR man, the man who traveled with her. She was French. Now, French women are not like we are, okay? She didn't want to be seen wearing her glasses. She would put on half eyes when she was signing something. There was a lady who asked her to sign something for her, and she took a picture of her. And this was at, Penny had an experience. At Marshall Fields, and she took the piece and she threw it and walked out. Her thing was always, sans mes lunettes, without my glasses. So that was just one of her little quirks. She did the same thing here at Mayors Jewelers. She did the same thing there. And I ran after her because she just walked out. She threw the piece down, she got up and she walked out. I was gonna give her a ride to the airport and do something with her, you know, I felt bad for her. So I knew, you know, she was a nice lady anyway.
Is the jewelry marked?
Yes, yes. I'll be happy to show it to you. It's gotta be marked, it's always marked. Mark Lalique, when he took the factory over in 1945, after his father died, he changed the crystal composite. He added more lead to it, which made the glass heavier and crisper looking. So, because he owned it, you know, he could do whatever he wanted to. And as I said, the place is still there. In 2003, at the age of 67, Marie Claude Lalique died in Captiva. I was able to buy this piece that was done. This piece is in my dining room with the frame around it, Mark Lalique. And it's just very special to me. It's my inheritance to my children. That and my collection. In 2010, a holding company took over. Porcher bought it from Marie Claude Lalique. She retired. She wanted to be around nature. She married the man she lived with for 20 years in the south of France. She did not like being around people. She was a very, very tiny lady, very tiny, and she was very French. And she just wanted quiet, peace and quiet, and that's what she was able to get here in Florida because nobody knew who she was. Okay. If there are any questions, I think that's about it.
When did Mark retire?
Mark died in
Did he work till the end?
Yes, he worked until the,
So
he worked
1977.
until the end. He had nothing to do with his daughter at all.
Okay, so
She didn't want to
1977.
have anything. Wait, yeah, 1977, yes.
So he had the factory till then.
Yeah, the factory till then. The factory is still in Alsace-Lorraine. There's also a story of there's also a story of a dealer who I know very well, named Michelle. In the back, whenever glass is being made, you have to have trees, you have to have forests. That's why this is in Wingen-sur-Moder. It's an area with a lot of trees, because they need the trees to melt the glass. He put on an outfit, he went into the back, into the pond that was in the back, and he brought all these perfume bottles out. Because nothing that was imperfect ever left the factory. If there was a bubble in the glass, it would have been thrown away. It wouldn't have been broken. It may have been broken, or it may have been remelted. Now, funny enough, in my opinion, this is a prototype for this bottle, because the stopper is stuck. And the bottom, the way it looks, that tells me a couple of things. Because of the minerals and things that are in the water in France, you get a lot of sick glass that comes out of France. And CLR will normally clean it out. And it works very well. If you have any type of glass that you want to have really super clean, take some CLR, or you can even use some, what I do, if I'm cleaning out a bottle, afterwards I will put mineral spirits through it, because the mineral spirits will dry everything that's inside the bottle.
What's the value of that?
This, on a retail market, is about 15,000.
Really?
But, because it's from the Marie Claude collection, and it's marked on the bottom,
Double?
if you're gonna buy a Rolls Royce, and if it belonged to Liberace, you're gonna pay extra for the Rolls Royce? I wouldn't. But then that's how some people are. It's the same thing with boxes and bottles. Do not throw your boxes away. They're very important.
And also with Lalique, back in the early 90s, if you broke a perfume bottle, they would replace it. Because that first one I broke, and they sent me another one, but I didn't have to send back the pendant, so I have 2 pendants.
Good for you. You know what I did with my pendant? Lalique used, when he did jewelry, he used a lot of shiny paper behind things to make because the glass was clear. And he would put a piece of shiny paper behind it, whatever color he wanted it to be. Now, because of the guilds in France, which are still in existence today, if you sold jewelry, you could not sell glass. If you sold glass, you could not sell anything that's got gold or silver on it, because that's the way they worked it. And it all became because of the 1900 exhibition in France. Everybody was limited to something. So this is the same way you can't buy cheese where you buy meat in France. Everything is separate. You cannot buy pastry and bread where you can buy fish, because everything is owned separately, even in the big, monoprix, even in the big Publix like we have here. It's just really weird, but that's the way they work, and they always have. And if you go to the outside market, the same thing. The man who sells salami cannot sell cheese, and vice versa. Nor can he sell any chickens. And, that's another thing. If you sell things with feathers, you can't sell things with, you can't sell things with fur. Absolutely, absolutely.
You think we got unions in the US?
Ben lived in Paris, like I did.
Examples of Lily?
Yes, they were brought in by this young lady?
I brought 2 in.
Okay.
And then other-
Can we talk about the signatures? After Renee died, all of the arrows were struck out of the molds for those?
Yes, And anything that was available that had an R on it that Mark designed, like roquettes,
Okay.
any of the doll ennui pieces, all of those he brought back into the factory and erased the R from in front of it. So if you see a roquette, did you ever see a roquette where the signature is sideways? It doesn't match? Like,
I never thought about it, but you're right.
he took the R off. That's how he was. They were a very funny family. Renee Lalique is buried with, Mark is buried with Renee in Père Lachaise Cemetery, and I went to visit the grave. The thing that got me the most is it said, Madame Renee Lalique. It didn't tell you who it was. It didn't say it's Augustine Ledru Lalique. It didn't say it was the first wife. It didn't say anything, there was no mark on it. You know, and people go, and because there's a big glass cross about this big in the front, and it's sitting kind of cockeyed. It's no bigger than 1.5 of these tables, and it's sitting between other ones. There are other graves that are much more interesting, but people go and they try to chisel the piece of the cross off. So the company's constantly putting new crosses into the spaces.
So is it a grave or a crypt?
It's an above ground mausoleum.
Okay.
And if you go, there's a wonderful website called www.rlalique.com. If you go to it, it'll tell you the whole story that I just told you tonight, plus other things. There's nothing much on Mark, very little on Marie-Claude Lalique, but it'll show you pictures of pieces, including his gravesite at Père Lachaise.